Yeah. But
Oh, that's all right.
such is the way. We'll probably just ask you all again.
Yeah,
Introduce yourself. Tell us where we are and who we're with.
Yeah, no worries. Well, my name's David Graham, and yeah, we're in my studio, Simply Forged at Ashmore Arts,
Nice.
Victoria, Australia. And I'm glad we're inside, not outside at the moment.
Yeah, it's getting a bit blowy, isn't it? Yeah. It's getting a bit blowy.
I know.
Well, when did you end up here, Dave? How long have you been here for?
Yeah, so I've been at Ashmore Arts for about 10 years. About 10 years, yeah. I just happened upon the place because I needed a space to take my blacksmithing from a hobby, which has been for most of my life, so I guess 26 years ago. And then 10 years ago, I was like, I got to stop beating around the bush, and I'm going to make a go of this, otherwise it'll never happen.
Right.
So I needed to find a commercial space, pretty much.
Yeah.
I had my workshop at home. You can't do this from home.
No.
Too much noise, too much mess.
Yeah. And the neighbours didn't like it. So, which is fair enough. So, yeah.
So how long were you doing this as a hobbyist / part-time before you decided this was you?
Yeah, so from the age of 17, that's when I discovered blacksmithing. And then so I built houses for roughly 20 odd years.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so carpenter by trade as well.
What skills then?
Sorry?
You have a lot of skills.
Pretty diverse range of things that I've done over the years, yeah. So, carpentry is good. Carpentry is a great skill to have, but it was never a real passion. It was just something that I did for money, and I did enjoy it. I did because I enjoy working with my hands, and I loved being outside. And but over the years, I was just like, I'm avoiding my passion,
Right.
because I wasn't confident enough to step outside the hobby square. And
So you were still doing it at the time?
Yeah.
But just hobby?
Yeah. So I was still blacksmithing right throughout my right from the word go when I was doing my apprenticeship. So I started my apprenticeship in carpentry when I was 18, and I discovered blacksmithing when I was 17. So right throughout my apprenticeship, I was coming home and I was working in the back of my old man's shed, just in this tiny little lean-to with a coal forge, and it was really hot and unventilated and pretty awful. But yeah, it was where I made my first items and first tools, and I made some things that I wasn't that proud of.
Yeah.
But you got to start somewhere. And those things are probably still kicking around. I used to give them to friends and family and stuff for birthday and Christmas presents.
There's a bit of an onus on that, isn't it? Especially if you're making stuff as a blacksmith, because it will last forever.
Yeah.
If it's crap, someone will tell you about it forever, because it's always going to last, right?
Exactly,
That's the downside of making things that last forever that no one's talking about.
Yeah.
There's a great story, fable, the pottery class. Same tutor asked half the class to make the best pot they could all year, or make as many pots as they could all year.
Yeah.
Which one do you think turned out better? It's the one that makes as many as they can, right? It's the ones that just sink in and just keep making and keep making and keep making.
Yeah.
So at 17, where did you pick it up from? One of the big things that we're really interested in investigating now is part of the reason a lot of these crafts are dying out is because nobody's getting access to them at a younger age.
Yeah.
So where did you at 17 get access to blacksmithing?
Yeah, so look, I happened across the Australian Blacksmiths Association of Victoria up in Warburton. That's a rural area, about an hour and I think an hour and a half outside of Melbourne, or maybe a bit closer, 45 to an hour. And I was just happened to be driving through there with a mate of mine, and he had his license. He was a little bit older, because I was 17, so I didn't have my license. And anyway, we're driving through Warburton, and he wanted to stop for a cigarette. And I didn't smoke, and I was like, well, I'm going to go and get a pie. from the local bakery, so we're parked outside the bakery, and he was having his dart, and I was like, well, what's going on around the place? And I happened to just hear, I had my ears on, because, you tend to notice things when you're ADHD.
Yeah.
You tend to like everything. There's pretty much no filter. It's just all coming in at once. And I just heard this ting, 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 and then stop, and I can smell like this coke, like coal. I was like, oh, what's going on, And so I followed. I said to my mate, I'm going over here. I'm going to check this out. And he's like, oh, whatever, Oh, you had another cigarette. And I walked over the road, and I found this. I just followed the noise, and I found this tent, this marquee. All these older blokes, set up with their hand crank blowers and their coal forges. Had a couple of tables of wares that they were trying to sell, and had this banner, Australian Blacksmiths Association of Victoria.
That's so cool.
Anyway, I stood there for like 2 hours, and my mate was like, didn't know where I'd gone because I just followed this noise for quite a while.
You just got lost.
Yeah. And he didn't know where I was, and I think I had a phone. I can't remember. That was mobile phones. He was like 90s. Yeah. No, did I have a phone then? I don't think I did.
Right.
That was like 1997.
Okay.
So I don't know if I had a phone or not. Probably not. And that's why I couldn't. So I stood there for a couple of hours apparently, and then he finally found me. He was like, where'd you go?
What do you mean? It's been 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was in a time warp because I was just like, had my blinkers on, and I was just watching. It turned out to be this guy named Paul Horrigan, or Salty, we called him.
Right.
With his salty beard.
Right.
And he was a bit salty in his attitude as well.
Oh, okay, right.
Anyway, I was just watching him, and he was I can't even remember what he was forging. He was probably forging, like little hooks and maybe fire pokers and like that real sort of trad kind of demo kind of stuff, and probably nails, making nails to give to kids and that sort of stuff. And I was just like, I didn't realise you could manipulate steel like it was Play-Doh.
Yeah.
Pushing it from one place to another, without using a grinder, without cutting it, or welding it, in a fabrication kind of way. And I was just like, because that's all I knew at that point, because I'd done metalwork in high school, but it was just too rigid for me. I was like, there's got to be another way, but I hadn't discovered it yet. And this was this discovery. This was like, wow, you can hit it with a hammer, and you can move it and shift it, and then when it's cold, it stays like that forever. I was like, wow. So I was just standing there for ages, and Salty must have just seen me, this young bloke, just like with his mouth open, just standing there like a statue pretty much, and he's like, "Hey, young fella, how you going?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." And he's like, "Oh, you interested in this, are you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, "Here's a membership form. See you next Sunday."
That's how it was done back then. Yeah. There's a form. Come join.
And just like that, from just sniffing it a couple of hours before you're a member of the Victoria, how important is that for people to keep doing stuff like that? Like, where would your life have been if you hadn't found that day?
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows where I would have ended up? I probably would have ended up doing some sort of trade, or maybe I would have discovered another form of art or a craft, most likely. But I found it then, and then it was like, it was this addiction. It was like, I've got to do this. I remember the first time we were walking into the barn. They call it the barn. It's just this big sort of arched roof, kind of air raid, kind of like aircraft hangar kind of style roof, in Bundoora in Melbourne. And I remember going, I had to get my old man to drive me because I didn't have my license, so I felt a bit, rocking up all these older fellas. I hadn't even got my license when Dad drops me off.
Yeah.
And
You were the youngest person there.
By 20 years probably.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Probably more.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, all these guys were like in their at the time they were probably like, I think the youngest would have been 40, maybe,
Right.
50.
And you're 17, 18 at the time.
Love
You can
it.
imagine how many younger people, they had younger people sort of, I found out over the years that they'd had younger people sort of join and then make a few things and do a few courses and then go off and call themselves blacksmiths, and then they'd never hear from them again.
Okay.
They didn't get rid of me. I stayed there, I hung around for about 7 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like exclusively every second and fourth Sunday of the month. And every demonstration weekend I could get to, I was
You
there.
really loved it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the bug.
And did you have any access to the tooling and the stuff out with, or when did you get access to the tooling out with the second Sunday of every month?
Yeah, so I ironically, the guy who I was with when up in Warburton, when I just discovered blacksmithing, his grandfather passed away. And, that's unfortunate, his grandfather, but the fortunate thing was that he was like a fitter and turner.
Right.
And he had started making miniature railway, like steam trains, like really
Okay.
miniature ones, right? And he had a little miniature foundry set up
That's
because
cool.
he was casting all the parts and
Yeah,
the wheels
yeah.
and then machining them. So he had this forge that he'd made out of the bottom of a beer keg.
Okay.
So was it like a beer keg
Yeah.
like that? Yeah, he just cut it off and then welded a bit of pipe underneath, and he had like probably a drain, like a sewer drain cast grate or something that was over
Yeah.
the top. And he'd made this in his backyard, in his garage. He'd made this double throw, like bellows, but it was like a pump. So you
Right.
pull up and down in a cylinder.
And this is a coal forge, so fill it with coal, light it, and then pump away.
Oh, like charcoal he
Yeah,
fired
yeah.
it with, yeah. So anyway, I was talking to my mate at some stage about I'd discovered blacksmithing, and so his old man was a welder.
Yeah.
And, we're all interested in cars and stuff and
Yeah.
mechanics and, so it was all, we're all interested in that sort of stuff. And he's like, hang on, my grandfather just passed away and I think he's got a forge. And I'm like, you're kidding me? It's like, no, come around. So I went, I don't know, I paid $100 for it or something. But yeah, I got the big 44-gallon drum of charcoal because he'd made all his own charcoal.
Really?
Yeah. And I got this, like this, I wish I'd kept it.
Yeah.
I didn't keep it, but that little set of like bellows sort of thing and the forge, and maybe a couple of pairs of tongs, but they were pretty. And a little crucible, actually, as well. I don't know what ended up happening to the crucible. So I grabbed that. I didn't know really much. And that was all around the same time. It was just beginning to go to the barn.
Right.
So I didn't really know what I was doing at all. And I was just at that beginning stage where I was just trying to find as much information as I could. From books. You can't learn blacksmithing from a book.
Nope.
You can't. You can, once you know a few things that can help you.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I
But-
learnt this from a South Korean professor that was at the UNESCO thing we were at last week. It's called tacit skills, TACIT. There is actually a framing for it. Tacit skills are skills that can't be passed on through reading, writing or telling.
There you
You
go.
have to like hold someone's hand and be like, that's how you hit it.
Exactly.
Learn by doing, and learn by doing with someone who knows.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So I didn't know that was a thing, but I knew it was a thing because I knew that people couldn't learn, but I didn't know that it was recognised, and it's recognised as tacit skills.
I didn't know either.
Yeah, there you go.
I've just learned something.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you're turning up at these places,
Yeah.
just like, I know I can't learn this from the books,
Yeah.
so
Show
I
me.
need to just get hands-on. Show
Yeah.
me. Let me burn my fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to burn the shit out of myself
Yeah.
until I learn how to do this.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what I did.
It's a pretty visceral learning process in blacksmith, though, isn't it?
It's very
Yeah.
visceral.
I done 6 months of it in Norway, and you learn real quick. You learn
Oh,
your mistakes
yeah.
quicker than most other crafts.
Oh, yeah.
It
Yeah.
tells you straight away, and it fucking hurts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're like, get it fucking hot.
Yeah.
You know? Hit it.
Yeah.
Don't be scared of it. Hit it. Got to hit it. stuff like that. And that's what these older guys, say. There was some wary crew in there, I think, who were sort of middle-aged guys. So that age I am now, I guess, and they were kind of like, who is this young guy? And he's just going to learn a bit of stuff and then he's going to disappear.
Right.
So it took a long time
to prove that you were there.
To prove that I was there, because I really wanted to learn this craft. It took some time. It probably took a good 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
I reckon for some of the crew to actually talk to me.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, it was a really closed shop, and some of those I found out were guys that were running professional full-time blacksmithing businesses,
Right.
or on the side, but just couldn't get enough work. Yeah, so they're super protective.
Scarcity mindset creeps in real quick.
Yeah, they were super protective of the craft and of the little work that they did have, which I kind of found really frustrating, and I didn't kind of understand at the time. And I still don't really.
We're in the same camp as you. Like, I don't understand scarcity mindset.
Yeah, it's just, it's like,
rising tide raises all ships, right?
Yeah. It's bizarre to me. So, but I was just really lucky that there was these core group of guys within the association that were happy to pass on their skills. They were like, if we don't pass on these skills, they're going to die with us.
Right.
Yeah?
That was their mindset even back then.
Absolutely. And there's 2 guys in particular, Don Marshall and Bill Bunting. And both those guys did their apprenticeships during World War II for Cuzlakes Engineering. And both those guys were just true gentlemen as well. Really respectful men, real men.
Yeah.
They knew how to treat women. They knew how to treat everyone. They treated everyone like how they'd like to be treated.
Yeah.
That old school
mentality.
And as a consequence of being around those guys, they just taught me. They taught me all that I wanted to know.
It's brilliant, yeah.
What an amazing gift.
Yeah, it is. That is what it is.
And it was just luck. Well, it wasn't luck that I kept turning up, but it was luck that I discovered those guys.
Yeah. So I was just to fight with this because I was for the longest time a firm believer that luck doesn't exist, that you make your own luck. But I am warming to the fact that luck is circumstantial and what happens after the initial little find.
Yeah.
Like, you done the initial find, that was the lucky bit. The rest of it's now on you, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because I could have easily just gone to those first couple of, second and fourth Sundays and been really turned off by the non-exclusiveness of inclusiveness, of a lot of those middle-aged guys.
Yep.
And not push through that and just given up and gone, oh God, these guys are shitheads and I don't want to be around that, so I'm going to go do something else. But something grabbed me about blacksmithing so much that I pushed through. I just had to push through that. There wasn't any choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And even back then, did you view this as something that how did you think about it back then when you started it? Was the hook in?
Well, at the time I was just like, this is like a dark art, This is alchemy. This is like, this is awesome. And then talking to those guys about it as well, and then just discovering just how seeing Don Marshall, for instance, forge a gum leaf in like 3 heats.
Wow.
Or it seemed like that. It was probably more.
Yeah.
Within 15 minutes.
Yeah.
From a square, a bit of 10 mil square stock to a beautifully forged gum leaf.
Yeah.
And you'd just be like, how the fuck?
Magic.
Yeah.
Really? How many thousands of those did you have to do to be able to do it that fast? And and make it look effortless.
Yeah.
And not even breaking a sweat.
Yeah.
And using a really, really, probably a 1 kilo ball peen.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And it was the same, apparently, it was the same ball peen he'd used his whole blacksmithing career.
Really?
That's cool.
And I was like, wow, you know? So I just saw that and then tried to obviously do some of the things that they were doing and just going, oh my God, this is like really hard. This is really hard. And, but just wanting to do what they were doing, you know? And
You're like, one day I'll be like that.
One day I want to be doing that.
Yeah.
Or maybe not exactly that, but be as proficient as that. And be able to, for the hammer to be an extension, just an extension of your arm, of your hand, you know, and not have to think about where that hammer blow is going to go and just have a visualization of something you want to make. Or not even that, but have the process just so ingrained within you that you can it just comes out. Mm-hmm. And then stuff just happens. And that's when the art happens. Yeah. I think that's what makes blacksmithing art. Yeah, because you might, one hammer blow or one process might just accidentally turn into something else, and you go, oh, I love the look of that. That's awesome. Or that felt good, you know, and then expanding on that.
Yeah.
So
is that something you think you can, or maybe the question is, had you seen all that on video or on film or online, do you think you'd had the same connection to it?
Geez, that's a really good question. I can't answer that. I don't know if I can answer that on. Because I guess that hasn't been my experience.
Yeah.
I kind of be, you know, it'd be an opinion.
Yeah.
I'd be guessing, because I have over the years since, you know, the internet and YouTube and how good is that? You can look up guys and women as well. Like actually, I discovered, you know, Bex Simon. Yeah, Bex Simon in I think she's in Surrey.
Surrey, yep. Yep. Surrey or Kent or Surrey?
Yeah, she moved. I think she started off in Surrey and then.
Okay.
I know the woman you mean though. Yeah.
I remember discovering her at some point, and seeing a YouTube clip of her working. It was like a bit of a, you know, it was a promotional, you know, kind of thing, which you've got to do, which is hard for artists.
Yeah, that's why we exist.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, well, she's doing it. You know, how amazing is that?
Yeah.
You know, and does really nice work.
Yeah,
she does really, really nice work. It's taken her a long time to develop her art, but wow, she's doing some really beautiful stuff, and she's worked with some really talented blacksmiths, and went to Hereford, and you know, did the whole deal.
It's the same place Jax Waygood went to.
Okay, yeah.
So Jax, we podcasted with Jax. He actually ended up on the BBC on one of these like they're like the cook show format for makers. It's called Make It at Market. So we've had a couple of them pop up in the UK, which are really. They're not really maker focused for makers, but they're a really good way of getting makers' names out there into the wide world, because they're huge viewership, right? Yeah. So he studied at Hereford as well. It's like the.
Is it the only school in England?
I think it's. I hesitated to say it there, but I'm going to lean into my gut, and I think it's the only one in England that does it.
Yeah.
That's why he wants to do workshops, because there's not enough education for people to try this.
Well, there's not enough
craft.
to do exactly what you've just spent the first half of this podcast explaining to us.
Yeah.
To see it hands-on, right?
Yeah. And it to be a place where, a teaching place of passing on the craft. So yeah.
So how do you feel about that now with your career where it is, with the passing on the craft bit?
Well, that's why I'm teaching.
Yeah.
And I started running courses, one-on-one courses out of the workshop / studio, not that long after I'd been here. I think I was still over I think I ran my first course when I was over in that tiny little workshop over there, over the way here. And I remember it quite well. You know, the guy just lives down the road here, actually, that I ran the course for. Clint is his name. Yeah, he owns a couple of pubs in Melbourne,
Okay.
I think, music venues, and it was a little bit nerve-wracking because I'd never really taught it before in a formal way of like charging money for it, And anyway, it came to the end of it and I was like, oh, I felt really good about that. And he had a great time.
Good.
And he got to take away something that he'd made and I was like, wow, this is like full circle.
Yeah. All of a sudden this works.
Yeah. And I was like, well, that's what guys were doing for me.
Had you thought about it before you started doing the classes that that's what people had done for you?
Yeah, definitely. But it was more, I guess at the time it was more, oh, geez, I had people, actually, that's right. I had people asking me, do you run courses?
Right.
And I'm like, no, not at the moment. I'm just sort of, because I was just starting the business. It was right, in its infancy and I was still doing carpentry part-time,
right.
Really, at that time, like a couple of days a week. And then it was getting to that point where I was like, if I don't stop doing that, if I'm not here every day of the work week doing whatever, whether it's a paid job or I'm just making stuff, and I'm never going to get where I want to be. It's never going to happen. And as soon as I made that step,
that's when you came here, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's when even when I was here, it was still sort of part-time for the first 3 months maybe.
Yeah.
And then in talking with Stu, who owns this place at Ashmore, he was like, Dave, if you're not here every day, look, you're going to have to jump off the cliff at some point and commit. You have to commit. If you don't commit, it's probably never going to happen. If you're here every day, then people will find you. It will happen eventually. He's like, it's not going to be easy. He sure as shit was right. It's been blood, sweat and tears, like literally many, many times. And there's been a few times where it's been that hard that I've wanted to give up. Because it's been so hard. But I'm really glad that I haven't.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say to any other maker that's in it could be whether they're a blacksmith, a joiner carpenter, a ceramicist, whatever they are, that's in the same position as you've found yourself in multiple times? You're ready to give up.
Don't give up. Because if you do, and if you do give up, part of you's going to die, I think. You're going to die inside. Artists and makers, craftspeople, I don't think you can afford to do that. In a monetary sense, maybe you should, or people might think, or your partner, or your family, or your mates might go, oh Jesus, you're taking a bit of a risk doing this, or geez, you're not making any money, and
that's not what I want to heir. I want to hear that.
Yeah, that's right. And I've relationships of my personal relationships. Some of them have come to an end because of that. Because I've been like, no, I can't give this up. Like, I just can't.
What's the money worth though if you're deeply unhappy, wishing you'd stuck at it? What is the money worth?
Oh, well, that's it. It's nothing.
Yeah.
It might put food on the table and, whatever, but...
Yeah, don't get me wrong, everyone still needs to pay their bills, but...
You regret it in the end.
Yeah.
Who wants to come to the end of their time on this planet, wherever that may be, and go, oh, shit. Why did I do that?
Yeah. Nobody.
I think part of that, a part of that attitude had came to me through having a fairly nasty experience when I was really young. Hey, Don.
Oh, not doggy.
Another bleed killer.
Here's me just saying they're really not common. You never see them back home, and there's a couple of them here.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Oh.
So you were saying a lot of that came to a nasty position when you were quite young?
Yeah. So, I lost my first wife when we were in our 20s.
Okay. Gosh, sorry.
Childhood sweetheart, But anyway, she was really... Bruce, come here. She was really driven really career driven, or to her passion. She loved vet science.
Right, okay.
And she always, from a young age, she wanted to become a vet. And a lot of that rubbed off on me. Okay. You know, like I understood how passionate she was about where she wanted to go and what she wanted to do with her time, you know, and what she wanted to do with it for a living, you know. And for her, it was more than that. It was more than earning money.
Yeah.
But as a byproduct, you know, in the end, you get paid pretty well.
Yeah.
After a long time.
That's what I was going to say. In veterinary, though, it's a long time to get to a point where you get paid well.
Oh, it was bonkers. It really was bonkers. Like, I think she was at uni for 6 years.
Yeah, it's a long time, isn't it?
She did
6 years of racking up debt before you make your first paycheck.
Yeah,
That's a lot, eh?
Yeah, she did a year of science because she didn't get in straight out of high school, and then applied again, and then got in. And then did, I don't know, whatever it is, another 3 or 4 years, and then did a research year and got honours.
Yeah, okay.
So it ended up being about 6 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah, so anyway, got her first job as a large or mixed practice, large animal, small animal. And at the time I was building houses and we moved out to Geelong region. That's how I ended up down here. And then I was sort of tinkering in the shed, and I was still going up to the barn in Bundoora, and I was on their committee. I was sort of getting more involved and that, and everything was sort of happening well, and I had rough plans to kind of pursue blacksmithing as a career path. But once Emily had you know, got into a position in a practice where she was earning good money, and then she was able to support my passion as well, you know.
Especially in those initial years, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, she got cancer and she passed away. And then I had to just go on, you know. But what really lit a fire under my ass, so to speak, if I can use that term, in a blacksmith's workshop, is that whole experience was like, well, shit, like it can be taken away from you in an instant.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it was an instant. It was a couple of, you know, it was probably 18 months.
In the grand scheme of things, though, at that age, that's an instant, right?
It's an instant, yeah, totally. She was 27 when she died, right?
Yeah.
And I was 26. And it was like, we're right at the beginning of our lives together and wanting to have a family and all the rest of it. And then that got taken away from her. And I remember her saying when she was dying, you know, because it was an instant, you know, and she was like, I'm not done yet. I'm not finished. Oh, fuck, that stuck with me big time. Yeah. So I was like, so since then, I've just been like, well, fuck, I'm sure as shit.
Make use of my life and do what I want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Make sure you're finished when your time's there. Make sure you've done your bit.
And I'm going to give back.
Yeah.
As well. I'm not just going to take. I'm going to give back in whatever way I can.
Nice.
And since then, I've done some volunteer work and emergency service work and on the side and stuff like that, and teaching, you know, as well. So, yeah, she was really supportive back in the day. And unfortunately, you know, I think at times that can be rare for makers to not, you know, to be supported by family and by the partner.
Yeah.
Because there's this whole thing. Well, if you're going to do that, you're not going to make any money, you know, or not be able to push through that hard time to
be able to make the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, as if the money, because unfortunately it is the money is the metric for success, but it isn't for everybody.
Well, it's as important as money is unfortunately as important as oxygen.
Yeah.
Without it, we're kind of fucked.
Yeah, absolutely. But how much isn't?
Yeah.
The
how much do you really need?
Yeah. The accumulation of it is not the metric of success. Having enough of it is the metric of success.
Yeah. Being able to live, being able to do what you love, and have a happy life, I think well, for me, that's the most important thing. Because without doing this, I wouldn't be happy.
Yeah.
What about the actual shop setup though? Because it's obviously so you talk about being able to make the money and being able to make it a business and businessify it. It's a lot. You've obviously spent a huge amount of capital to make this remotely efficient.
Yeah.
What is the payoff between, in your opinion, spending the capital to make it efficient or doing it smaller and slower?
Yeah. Well, and I think this comes down. I think this is part of my my discovered ADHD-ness. Is that having ADHD, sometimes we make decisions a bit too quickly. So look, I've bought equipment when I probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have quite enough money and have taken risks in that way, but it's paid off long term.
Because you can use that equipment for something else to make more money.
Exactly.
And
It makes it more efficient. For instance, the power hammer. Well, I probably wouldn't be doing it 10 years in without it.
Yeah.
Because my body would be completely knackered.
Elbows and shoulders would have gone, wrists would have gone, something would have gone.
I mean, and it still is, I'm dealing with a tendon injury at the moment, which is really giving me the shits. But without it, you just can't. You can't make it commercially, if I can use that word, commercial.
Yeah.
You can't make it a viable business without having a hammer. I don't think it's possible.
There's also the other side. You say when you bought the equipment when you maybe shouldn't have, but there's also the side of it where you have to, because not a lot of this equipment's available.
No.
When it comes up, it comes up.
Yeah.
So stick to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the gear in here I've had for a very long time, like the anvil, my main anvil. I've had that since I was 21.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And Soderfors in Sweden.
Yeah.
Any blacksmiths, listening to the podcast will be like, yeah, Swedish steel. It's good steel, just like German steel. English steel's good, but I don't know. There's something about those anvils. But everyone's different. There's definitely some, there's some tongs in here that are pretty dear to me that I've had from the beginning.
Are they ones you've made in the beginning?
One pair, yeah. Oh, and actually another pair that I was helped to make by Don Marshall.
Nice.
A pair of scroll tongs.
Nice.
And they're very dear to me, and I use them all the time. They're wrought iron, so they mushroom over a little bit, but they're really cool.
Nice.
But yeah, look, like all the big gear in here, yeah, like when it happens, when I see it, I'm like, oh my god, I'm probably not going to see that again. If I don't snaffle it now, I'll probably, it might be another 10 years before I see another one.
They might just not come up, right? They're not.
They might not.
They're not making good ones still. When they're available, they're available.
Yeah, that's it. And in Australia, particularly, power hammers don't grow on trees.
No.
Particularly Massey. Particular, BNS Massey. They are around, but people hang on to them, and they hang on to them even if they don't use them.
Yeah, because they'll never get another one.
Which is pretty bizarre.
Yeah.
However, I am doing that with that 500 weight out there.
I did see that. That's a big hammer. That is a big hammer.
That's a big hammer. And I just can't justify the cost of installing that here at the moment.
Right, okay.
It's about 30. It'd probably cost me 30 grand to install that.
Because you need to dig a pit and lay the new concrete for it. Like they're the kind of hammers that they used to build shops around.
Exactly. Yeah. So 12 tons, I think, of concrete that needs under it.
Really?
There's a great picture of I'm sure it was in Philadelphia. It's definitely Pennsylvania somewhere.
Oh, the Centre of Metal Art? The Centre for Metal Arts?
I don't know. I think it was more an abandoned factory. Maybe it was the Centre of Metal Art that pulled it. But yeah, someone pulled the hammer and it was just this gargantuan hammer. Yeah. And you could very clearly see the shop had been built around it.
Yeah.
That had been laid and then the rest of the slab had been laid.
Yeah, totally. So if I wanted to install that in here, which I don't have enough space in here to work around it anyway, because you need a decent 3.5 metres of clear space around that hammer to operate it safely and efficiently. But I'll have to take the roof off.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
And then you need to get a crane in
and then you crane
and
a big crane.
Who was it that we featured in one of the previous editions that was doing work for the Centre for metal arts. Locksmith. He builds these beautiful... Thomas, yeah. He builds Lucky Forge. Good Luck Forge. Lucky Forge. He builds these beautiful old school locks. Like blacksmith the locks.
Yeah,
and
wow.
There's things that just don't happen anymore.
No.
And
He was actually doing a course somewhere.
He was doing a course there, yeah, and then he built, like he was teaching there, and he built locks, and he showed them how to build locks.
That's cool.
Awesome.
It was cool. It was really cool.
That's next level stuff.
Yeah.
Even for me, like I look at that and I go, well, like I wouldn't know where to begin.
Yeah.
I mean, I have anxiety about this gate behind me putting a Lockwood, like a commercial lock fitted to the gate. You know, I've only got like 4 mil play. You know. Yeah. Anyway, that's
because it comes from doing beautiful sculptural art stuff to it needs to be beautiful sculpture and function.
Yeah.
Because it can't just function or it's not your work, right? Like
That's
people
right.
employ you because if you wanted it just to function, you fabricate up a box section steel gate.
Yeah, that's right.
People have come to you because they want it to be beautiful.
Yeah, but it's got to function like perfect as well, and it's got to have some adjustment, which takes time. So I can definitely like crew that make locks like the old way, like that. That's phenomenal
It's
stuff.
very
It's
nice.
phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
It's like watchmakers.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like that's like jewelry on steroids, really, isn't it?
And then when we've featured a couple of watchmakers and when you're in front of them, you realise everything that you think is this size is actually like...
with a magnifying glass, literally.
Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So someone asked, I've been picking up questions from makers that they would ask other makers.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Cush asked, and I've memorised this one, I need to memorise some of the other ones. Brian Cush asked us to ask other makers if there was one piece of your work that was still stood in 100 years and you were remembered for it. This is actually quite a good blacksmith question. And you were remembered for it, what would it be? It doesn't have to be something that you've done so far. It could be something that you want to do, but what is that piece? What is that piece that people walk by and go, I know who done that?
Whew. No, that's another difficult question because there's so many things I want to make. You know, like there's so many ideas that you have, and then you got to have. There just doesn't seem to be enough time. You know.
Yeah, I hear it.
There's just not enough time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know what it is yet?
I don't know.
Well, when you work it out, you can let us know.
Yeah. I mean, look, you know, I think every maker's got something to say.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what art is, you know, as well. It's communication through your art, whatever that may be. You know, whether it's forging, you know, blacksmithing, or whether it's ceramics, whether it's painting. It's, you know, whether you're a stonemason, you know, you're sculpting out of stone, or whatever it is. Music.
Yep.
You know, communicating through song, and you know. So, I mean, look, I'd like to be. I've seen quite a lot of work around climate. You know, climate-based works, and not just climate, but humanity and where it seems to be heading. You know, so without giving too much away. You know, like I'm so that's sort of the way I'm heading. I think with you know with the sculptural, with the art side of of my work, but as well, you know, with mental health. I think mental health as well
huge.
is a huge issue, and it's completely underfunded, particularly in Australia.
And spiraling wildly out of control in a lot of places around the world.
It's huge. So I definitely want to communicate some of my own struggles around that.
Okay.
As well, I think too. So yeah, you know, I'd be pretty stoked if one day, you know, someone turns around and goes, "Oh, that Maker's Mark! I've seen that Maker's Mark somewhere." You know, and then can look that up, and then there'll be, I don't know, there'll be something on me somewhere, and they'll go, "Oh, hey, that maker, yeah, he was blacksmith and he did this and he did that. And he learned off that guy and that guy and that guy. And, oh, yeah, you know.
Maybe I could do it as well.
Yeah. Or maybe, you know, maybe it's not the work that I'm remembered by. Maybe it might be, and I was thinking about this after doing the course up at the Rare Arts Lost Trades up in Ballarat. You know, if I teach someone something,
Yep.
you know, in a course, and they remember that, or that inspires them to follow their, you know, their dream or their passion. You know, if I'm remembered for that, that's enough.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
I'm with you on that one. You only need to change one,
Yeah.
and that's enough.
Yeah. Make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what's been done for me.
Yeah.
You know?
So not necessarily remembered for a piece, but remembered for a thing.
Yeah.
Like an act, remembered for giving someone the inspiration, whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
Whether it's physical or knowledge passed on.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, as well on that, you know, like, I believe as well, and this is sort of why I don't tend to paint a lot of what I make as well. I mean, gates, things like this that are, you know, yeah, that definitely is because the client wants it. But my sculpture, even the outdoor stuff, I like to just let it rust.
Okay.
Because I'm a believer. I mean, a lot of it's pretty big,
Yeah.
hefty material, so it's going to take a long, it's going to outlive me and probably my daughter as well.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of it going back to the earth.
I like that.
Nothing lasts forever.
No.
And nothing probably should, you know. I mean, we've dug it out of the ground. You know, we've mined it and smelted it and turned it to steel. And I like the idea of it going back to where it came from.
It's a cycle, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a
one big
cycle. And that's kind of the thing with, and it's a little bit like teaching as well, but I think the teaching part of it can live on
Yeah.
a lot longer than what the sculpture can.
Hopefully.
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 I hear that.
Yeah. And
I like that outlook. I think that's a really positive outlook to have.
I'm not that positive all the time, but
No, but I think having that pinning outlook for a lot of people would see them through the really hard times.
yeah.
Like, we've got a one more day rule, because this gets really hard. Like, all we're trying to do is push more makers' stories out into the world, right?
Yeah.
It's really hard as two people who have put their house deposit on the line multiple times to push people out into the world. Right? It's a really difficult thing to do, but you do it for one more day and hope that you make a difference to one person.
Yeah. And if you do, then you can
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, and you can sit together at night and go, oh, shit, you know, that was really fucking hard, but wow, I feel really good about that.
We won.
Yeah.
We beat capitalism in
Yeah.
that one area.
And you know, and like we said earlier, you know, if you can get to the end of your time on this earth, and wherever we're going or whatever happens afterwards, you know, like you can be, you can leave knowing that you've done something positive.
Yeah. I like that.
You know, as well.
Kate, final question.
We never asked the question to forward on to the next person.
Oh yeah, because I forgot again. Good reminder. If you were to sit down with any maker and ask them anything you wanted, you don't know who the maker is, so you're just going to sit down with someone. Think of it as speed dating or blind dating. What is the question you would ask them?
Oh. So if I didn't know who they were going to be, but what's the question?
You don't know who we're going to sit you down in front of. So I'll tell you why, because it maybe puts a bit more context to it. We're working on a set of playing cards, right? Not for any profit, not as a product, not for anything like that. We're working on a set of playing cards, like just fun questions that you can ask other makers can be asked, or maybe they almost become the thing when your family says, I don't understand what you're doing. You're like, work through them and ask me the question. Maybe they become that, right? I don't know what they become. I don't know why we want to do it. That's what I'm interested in right now. So what's the question on your card?
Jeez.
Maybe a good question to ask.
I would say, what inspires you? Because I think that question, you know, can lead into so many other conversations, but it can be very insightful. You know, and I don't think a lot of artists aren't that forthcoming as well. A lot of makers aren't forthcoming of what inspires you. They know they have to do it, and they say to people, "Well, I have to do this because I love it," but there's a lot behind that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That's a pretty good one. That's actually really simple. What inspires you? It's very top level. It's like that's where the whole conversation can start.
Yeah, well, it has
before you know if they're a blacksmith, before you know if they're a ceramicist. Yeah. I'll keep that one. Okay.
And what advice would you give your younger self?
For my younger self, don't give up.
Yep.
Yeah, do it. Do it now. Do it yesterday.
Yeah, do it yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah, don't give up. I'd give my young self a lot of advice.
Yeah.
But that would
he have listened?
Probably not.
Yeah, that's also a common theme. Tell people where they find out about you, where they find out about your courses, your work.
They can find out about me on my website. It's www.simplyforged.com.au. Or on Instagram is David_Graham_sculptor.
Nice.
Well, we've had a great
Mate, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
I love
Thanks
dropping into people's workshops and just, that's what it's about, right?
So do I, actually.
Yeah.
So I can completely understand. Yeah, there's nothing quite like being welcomed into someone's workspace or their studio, and then you can tell a lot about a person or a maker, by being in their space.
That's why we choose to travel tens of thousands of miles a year, because you can have a way better conversation in their space.
I'd love to do it, actually.
Yeah.
As a side hustle.
It's brilliant.
It's a side
Mate, do it. You can start up the Australian branch. So, right.
It wouldn't take very long. I wouldn't have much work.
Right.
Amazing.
Let's wrap it at that. Dave, thank you so much, mate.
You're